Ohio State overpowered Penn State to secure a 20-13 win in front of a record crowd.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, here we are again on a Saturday afternoon, together once again live on the YouTube after another Ohio State win. This one, a 20-13 win over Penn State in Happy Valley in front of a record crowd. And before we go any further, guys, I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And this postcast is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Simply visit FanDuel.com to get started. During this postcast, we'll dive into the players of the game and what the Buckeyes did to maintain their composure. But ultimately, my main thought right now is that Ohio State overpowered Penn State to secure a tough road win in front of a record crowd, a 20-13 win that had controversy, had abnormal plays, and it saw Ohio State's defense rise to the occasion. And that's one thing that we've been talking about for a long period of time is the defense. We know what we think the defense should be able to be down the road. We know we think the defense with the players when they all play their best, what we think they can be. Well, what we got today is a glimpse into that. Even with Tyleik Williams going down late in the game, we got a goal line stand with some guys off the bench and Hero Canoe and Cade McDonald making big plays, along with Lathan Ransom, Cody Simon, and Caleb Downs as well. Like everybody got into the mix on the final defensive play of the game for the Buckeyes. But even on offense, being able to grind out, starting on the one, literally your back's up against the wall, and you grind out on the ground and just move, tick, 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 churn the thing. Keep going and keep going. And this is a great sign. Oh, did I add that Ohio State had a first-time starting left guard this year in its Buckeye career in Carson Hinzman? Yeah, we all knew that Mikulski was probably not going to play. He didn't play. You moved Donovan Jackson from left guard to left tackle. You have a new starter in Carson Hinzman who has barely played this year after starting 12 games at center a year ago. And what does he do? He makes that left side of the offensive line be somewhat of a strength for the Buckeyes down later in the game where they can run behind them. They're moving guys, they're pushing guys, even getting Donovan Jackson after the game. Late in the fourth quarter on that final offensive drive where he's kind of hyped up and he's shaking his head like, yeah, as he should as an offensive lineman, because there were issues earlier. There were even issues in the second half, but Ohio State being able to overpower Penn State, that was not something we thought we would see right now. That's a huge step in the right direction. It's a long season. The Buckeyes have a few more games left. They still have a shot to go to Indianapolis to play in the Big Ten championship game. But this is where you got to be. If Ohio State lost this game, their chances of being able to having a chance to play in the Big Ten championship, they're basically out the window. 10-2 for the first time in Ryan Day's career, potentially. Not even saying that, but having 2 regular season losses, that's not where you want to be. You have guys like Will Howard. You have guys like Caleb Downs that transferred in, Seth McLaughlin. What do? They transferred to win. Yeah, you may have a loss here or there, but that doesn't mean you can't win. They also transferred to win on the big stage. It was a record attendance in Beaver Stadium today. Over 111,000 people that were cheering loud. It wasn't the whiteout. They did the whole helmet stripe thing that I saw on Twitter where it was white all the way around, and they had the helmet stripe right down the center on both sides of the field. At the 50-yard line, cool. I mean, like, I get what you're trying to do. You could have just had a daytime whiteout. Like, I would have been cool with that. I'm also cool with what we're seeing from Ohio State right now. And Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles, they're making tweaks. They're adjusting things. And they're making sure that everything Ohio State needs to do in this game to win, they're doing. Now, yeah, you're gonna have a bigger test. I say bigger. Indiana's good. It may be a better team than Penn State when Ohio State meets Indiana down the road. You're gonna have to keep making these kinds of adjustments. You're gonna have Michigan, who's currently playing right now while we're recording. I don't even know if there's a score in the game yet, but I do know this: Michigan has a psychological advantage. I don't think they have a talent advantage. I don't even want to say they have a physicality advantage. There's a psychological advantage. But the way to overcome that psychological advantage is doing things right now like we got today. Will Howard making plays. Yeah, he had a bad throw. We're going to talk about that later in the show. A bad throw early on, which resulted in a pick six. But he didn't let that get him down. He didn't let that mess him up. Saw the run game get back to where you want it to be. By the numbers, I haven't really looked at these lately. Quinshon Judkins, 14 for 95, averaged 6.8 yards a pop. Henderson, who did not start this game for the first time all year, 10 carries, 54 yards, 5.4 yards a pop. You saw Will Howard have over 10 rushing attempts for the first time this year. Also had a couple carries from Emeka Egbuka. So they're trying different things out, doing a little bit of different things. Also, Will Howard had less than 200 passing yards, and I'm not complaining. Like, I don't care if he has 182 or if he has 382. I don't care. All I want is a win. And the formula that Ohio State went in there with, offensively, with the mindset, figure out what works on the ground, and then make that thing shake defensively, they didn't give up a touchdown. Yeah, I know I know what you see, and it's 20-13. That one score that Penn State had, that was within the first, that was at the 5:37 mark of the first quarter. Outside of that, Penn State had a field goal, a 29-yard field goal at the 6:54 mark of the first quarter. Then they had another field goal at the 5:03 mark of the third quarter. Outside of that, Ohio State's defense didn't give up a touchdown. And now, if you were to talk to me and ask me a question early in the week or even the day of the game, morning of the game, and you were asking me, would I expect Ohio State's defense to shut out the Penn State's offense? I would have said no. I would have assumed either Tyler Warren, who got really close, or Drew Aller or Bo Perbula. Those are the three guys I'd be looking at just saying, I think one of these guys will score. I would have said if it were Aller scoring, it would have been through the air to Warren. If it was Bo Perbula scoring, it would have been with his legs. And if for Tyler Warren scoring, you saw how they used him today. So it would have been either a run or a pass. I probably would not have picked which one, but I would have guessed that one of those three guys would have scored. They didn't. So we're finding Ohio State's defense rising to the occasion, being able to literally overpower Penn State's offensive line. And we know in every game, we talk about it, Urban Meyer's probably the biggest guy that's going to thump every single day. When you win big games, what do you have to do? You have to win the battle on the ground. If you don't win the battle in the trenches, you're not going to win the game. You may win the game, but it's going to be very, very hard. What we found today was Ohio State's defense. My gosh. As much as we heard about Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, and we know how good they are, buddy, they couldn't make anything shake. Kaytron Allen had 27 rushing yards on 12 carries. Nick Singleton, 6 rushes for 15 carries. The leading rusher for Penn State was their tight end. 3 attempts, 47 yards, 15.7 yards a pop. That was one run of 33 yards that got him down to the 3-yard line in the fourth quarter, which resulted in an Ohio State goal line stand, the one we'll be talking about for a very, very, very long time. Their second leading rusher was Drew Aller on a bad knee. So, yeah, Penn State had 120 rushing yards. They still didn't average over 4 yards a carry. They didn't have more rushing yards than Ohio State. And these are things that just show and confirm that Ohio State's defense did some great things on the road. And if they build upon those great things they did today in Happy Valley, we're going to be talking about this defense tomorrow, the next day, over the next few weeks, leading into that game against Indiana, leading into that game against Michigan, and have a lot more confidence about what the defense might do in those bigger games against teams that, well, one team will be ranked. Michigan won't be ranked, but Michigan has a psychological advantage, and we'll have a bigger belief to say, I think Ohio State's going to win this game behind their defense, and here is why. We'll have more data to kind of back that up. We do have some data about Ohio State maintaining their composure in this game, and that's a big reason they made big plays in key moments all game long. This postcast is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shop with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shop made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. Y'all, we see you. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5-hour energy shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5-hour energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Thank you all for tapping into this live postcast after Ohio State's 20-13 win over Penn State. Hop in the comment section. Let's keep this chat rolling. And I got a question for you. What was your biggest moment throughout the game? Because I think when you ask that question, some of you might say, well, it was that goal line stand. I mean, Joel Klatt broke it down, talked about Lathan Ransom and Cody Simon, talked about Caleb Downs, talked about some different things. I got a text from a buddy that was talking about how gap sound Ohio State has become in this game, how they showed up in that way, which was something that we have questioned how gap sound they have been. Was it Quinshawn Judkins and some plays that he made? Was it a sack? What was it? What were some things that you say, hey, this was the biggest moment in the game? And I think to me, it wasn't really a big moment. It was moments. Penn State opens up the game, drives down the field, eats up, 7 or 8 minutes on the opening drive, field goal. Okay, cool. If there was a time that the offense is going to score, they are probably going to score the first drive of the game when they get the ball, or it's going to be the first time they get the ball in the second half. Those are the two times I kind of expect you to score. Penn State did that. Cool. But think about the composure. Ohio State rose to the occasion and overpowered Penn State, but they kept their mind right after that, which is something I didn't really expect. In that hostile environment, and it got loud. They got stupid loud. I know a guy that's been at that stadium, and he said that, he said that it shakes in that stadium, which is insane. We've heard and we've seen players that have had issues with the crowd noise. Ohio State didn't do that. There were moments this year where they would have backed down or wouldn't have always rose to the occasion and made the right plays with the clarity of mind. They had that today. So once again, Ohio State's taking steps in the right direction. We saw that a few plays later, a couple series later, on the very next series, Ohio State gets the ball. What do we find? Will Howard pick 6, and that may have been his worst throw as a Buckeye. I can't recall all them throws, but buddy, I do know that was bad. That was really bad. Now, here's the weird thing. You can't truly telegraph a pass and telegraph where you're going to go before just simply by the formation. And as soon as they went that motion with Jeremiah Smith, then I thought they were going to call a false start or a illegal motion, because Jeremiah Smith seemed like he was going, like he went forward before the snap of the ball. Then he called himself that the ball was not snapped, and he started going at the snap of the ball. But I was like, oh, that could have been a false start, illegal motion, one of the two. It could have been a penalty. Pick 6. Well, Howard kept his composure. Very next drive was a Emeka Egbuka touchdown, and then a Penn State 3-and-out, and then a Brandon Ennis touchdown. And in this mix, we're finding the composure of Ohio State all game long, especially offensively with Will Howard. They're keeping their minds right. I mean, we've all played video games. I've played Madden. I play College Football 25 quite a bit throughout the week. And one thing I know, it's very, very easy to play that game and to fall into a trap. You fall into a trap. Oh, you throw an interception. Cool. Okay, you think your guys are good enough. You've made that throw before, fit it into that window. You're going to try it again. Oh, no, did it again. Okay, cool. I'm going to try a little something different. Then you try to do something that's really unorthodox for you, but you try it anyway. Another interception. These are video games. We didn't see this from Will Howard today. This is a video game I'm speaking about, and how we can compare ourselves to what Will Howard did, because we've had those moments where we've made a mistake, and then all of a sudden, can't get over it. We can't get past it. Will Howard did that. Now, defensively, though, you know that Penn State's probably going to use 2 quarterbacks. Drew Aller got the start on a bad knee. Still play decent ball. I wouldn't say he was atrocious. Played decent ball. Bo Pribula comes in, kind of the change of pace guy. The 2 quarterback system really wasn't working for Penn State like you would think it was going to. And Ohio State found a way to control that. Will Howard's fumble. I have not, out of all the ball that I have seen and you've seen, my gut says, I know for a fact I probably have never seen a fumble like that before. My gut says you probably have not either, where Will Howard is running, the defender comes in, perfectly punches that ball out of Will Howard's arm. But instead of going out of bounds because his arm is going right to left and the out of bounds is to the left of Will Howard, the ball hits Will Howard's leg, goes over the pylon for a touchback. Penn State gets the ball. So that's a little bit of adversity where you're thinking, okay, you had a couple good drives. Brandon Ennis had a touchdown and before that. And so you're thinking, man, this fumble, this could mess me up. This could be a little harsh. Ohio State had a field goal, and that's a big one for Jayden Fielding, who has had some struggles kicking the ball, not just in the field goal department, also on kickoffs, because one time this year, you remember he had those 3 kickoffs back to back to back that went straight out of bounds. So he's already having some psychological things as well. He's pumped up. He had a field goal of 46 yards, a field goal, the second one of 39 yards, and he is staying pumped up and ready to go. Later on that goal line stand, what do we find from the Buckeyes defense? This comes on a drive when Tyler Warren got Penn State down to the 3-yard line. This is also coming when Andy Kotelnicki, the play caller for Penn State, is trying to use an offensive lineman in motion, number 71, from back and forth down the line, trying to confuse Ohio State. One of the interesting things that they did, Ohio State's defense did, and I don't know which play it was, second, third, or fourth down, they didn't really move a guy out on him. They just let him be. Now, you would believe that Lathan Ransom or one of your linebackers could quickly get out to the big man to, if the ball was thrown his way, like a quick pop pass, you believe your guys are quick enough to get from their spot to get to where he is to break that pass up. You believe that. However, you didn't put anybody out there. Literally no respect for him at all. Penn State tried to do a little something later on, not with him. They motioned him, tried to go to Tyler Warren on that fourth down. And what do we find? Cody Simon was kind of a spy. Lathan Ransom went right to Tyler Warren immediately, like a beeline. Didn't matter what it was. I got this guy. I got 44. And then what happened? Drew Allen made a play. And I'm kind of fast forwarding through this because I don't want to spend the entire time on the whole game. But Ohio State kept their mind right. Caleb Downs broke the pass up. He was right there to defend the pass. This defense, man, this offensive line specifically, because Donovan Jackson a couple times at a new spot, he has never started at all at Ohio State. He got beat by Abdul Carter, which was expected. I mean, if you're 300 pounds and you're going up against a guy that's about 6'3", 252, you're giving up 50 pounds, you're giving up quickness, you're giving up speed. He also knows where he wants to go. And so out of your stance, you're knowing, hey, if he's wide, I might have to kick a little bit different. But you're not kicking it different in a way that's normal. This is abnormal because you don't normally play tackle. Abdul Carter knows that. Yeah, Abdul Carter got into the backfield. I know he had at least 1 sack. I forget how many he had. He had 2 sacks, 4 tackles in the game. Both of those were the 2 tackles for loss he had in this game. So you kind of expect that, hey, Abdul Carter is going to get back there. But even though Donovan Jackson got beat, did we see him kind of fold? Did we see him kind of give in? No. Carson Hinzman hadn't started all year, barely played this year. We've been kind of pounding the drum saying, hey, if there's a guy on the bench that needs to get in more than anybody else right now, it's Carson Hinzman. And what do we find? His first start of his Buckeye career in a new position, because I don't think he's played left guard at Ohio State at all. He plays so well, it's going to be hard to take him off the field because he is showing he belongs on this Buckeyes offensive line, and he is a guy that Ohio State can rely on in the run game. The pass pro does not matter. The Buckeyes maintain their composure. And I know we went through a lot there, lengthy, talking about different situations, just to kind of talk about what Ohio State's doing right now. They're fixing things quickly, on the fly, and Ryan Day, after the game, had a smile on his face because he realized this is not just an everyday or ordinary Penn State-Ohio State game. It's on the road. It's one of those games that if you lose it, you're not only not able to accomplish one of your goals, you're probably not going to, but also there's a lot more questions that come about Ryan Day, the coach, and if he is the right guy for the Buckeyes moving forward. Whatever you think about Ryan Day moving forward, that does not matter right now because Ryan Day and Ohio State won the game. They maintained their composure all game long, which leads to a few guys just standing out more than the rest to be players of the game. And players of the game in this day, going to do things a little bit different because I can't pick just 1 or 2 or 3 guys. There's a lot of guys that stepped up and helped Ohio State win this game Saturday in Happy Valley in front of a record crowd. This postcast is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, which is the FanDuel Sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Y'all, that's so good. It's too good not to say twice. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. All the action goes down in a couple places on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and at FanDuel.com. Thank you all for tapping into this live postcast after Ohio State's 20-13 win over Penn State. And one thing we've started to do this year in our postcast is, at least during the wins, is talk about our players of the game. Who highlighted on offense, who was a big guy on defense. And for the most part, it's been one guy on offense, one guy on defense. Last week, after the Nebraska game, there were co-defensive players of the game. Still only one guy on offense a week ago. And we have stats and graphics. We're not doing that today because I think today in this game, we can't highlight just two guys on offense and two guys on defense and even nobody on special teams, because that's getting recognized today as well. I'm going to start with Will Howard, number 18. And in a game where he talked about after last week's game against Nebraska that Penn State said he wasn't good enough in his recruiting process, that he's a Pennsylvania kid. He is a guy that grew up a Penn State fan. But today, on this day, his plan was to show Penn State that he was good enough, that he is good enough to be recruited by Penn State. And even though his numbers aren't sexy, not throwing for 450 or 500 passing yards with 6 or 7 touchdowns, he was pretty efficient. 67% completion percentage, 182 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he had the one INT. He did have 12 carries for 24 yards, a long of 13. And one thing we saw, even on that final drive of the game, it wasn't with his arm. It was with his legs. And Will Howard made big plays over and over and over again. And even with those passes, the touchdown passes, one to Abuka, the one to Ennis, we're finding that Will Howard's playing better. And even that one pass, deep ball pass to Jeremiah Smith that was an incompletion, what do we see from Will Howard on that play? That Will Howard's deep ball is getting better. I think that was on Jeremiah Smith, because I think if Jeremiah Smith runs that route like normal, I mean, he's going to the end zone for a touchdown. I think that ball was thrown so well, it's on Jeremiah Smith to catch it. So, yes, in the stat book, that is an incompletion. But what we saw today from Will Howard is that he's a gamer. One thing we highlighted in the offseason was a Big 12 championship game a couple years ago that he led Kansas State to beat TCU. He led Kansas State to win that day. I believe it was over TCU squad, and he rose the occasion. He made big plays that day. He made big plays today. He's one of our players of the game for Ohio State's win over Penn State. Another one, it's Quinshon Judkins. I believe this was his first start in the Scarlet and Gray, and he was someone that I've been saying, play him more, give him the rock, feed Q, all that kind of stuff that we say when we want to get a running back on the field. Well, today, it wasn't so much that he had 14 carries and 95 yards, along with 22 yards. Today, Quinshon Judkins had his mind right. We saw him in the first quarter barking back at Penn State defenders and just going back and forth, saying, man, y'all not ready. I don't know what he was saying. I'm just making this stuff up right now for y'all to kind of say, well, he might be. Y'all not ready. Like, y'all can't handle me. I'm too tough for y'all. Now, with us not knowing what he said, what did his play say? He was too tough for them. They weren't ready for Quinshon Judkins. He was hungry and eager to get on the field and to play big boy football today, and he did it, man. In a team, past the previous 6 quarters, they couldn't run the ball. I mean, literally, less than 100 yards in 6 quarters of football. If you're Ohio State, you can't run the ball. Our standard's too high, man. That ain't Ohio State standard. Even an average football team, that's bad. That's really, really bad. So Ohio State right now is trying to lean on a running back Is it number 32? Is it number 1? Well, today was number 1, and he rose to the occasion and played big boy ball all day. Let's go to special teams, because I don't normally do this at all, but I would feel really, really weird if I did not go to Jayden Fielding, who has had some issues kicking the ball this year. We talked about it earlier. He's missed field goals this year. He kicked 3 kickoffs out of bounds after the post-game presser last week against Nebraska. I believe it was Stephen Holbrook of Let It Monroe asked Ryan Day point blank, do you guys have trust in Jayden Fielding to make kicks? That was his question. And I'm sitting here thinking, the guys on Ohio State's beat are being a little bit more specific with questions about, do you or do you not have trust in X, Y, or Z? That's not normally how questions go. It's kind of this or that, and they kind of, that's two or three questions in one question, and then spit that thing out. Didn't try to hold back, and Ryan Day didn't immediately say yes. He kind of answered the question and then said, well, yes, we have confidence. And he may have confidence, but I think his confidence was a little shaky. Well, today in this environment, and trust me, Penn State's environment's one of the best you'll ever experience in college football. Knocking in a 46-yarder in the third quarter, knocking in a 39-yarder in the fourth quarter, that is going to help Ohio State not only have trust down the road, they can make big plays and they can score points either in the field goal game later in the season. For Jayden Fielding's mindset, for his mental to keep his mind right, that's a big boost too. Spent a lot of time on offense and on special teams, but on defense, man, I mean, there's a list, there's a plethora of players. We've talked about Caleb Downs. I know in the stat sheet his numbers aren't, I have it right in front of me, they're not sexy. I mean, just 4 tackles, all of them are solo. But man, with him being the last line of defense, he's almost like a definite 100% guy that if he's the last line of a defense, once he gets you, you're going to fall down. He's not going to break a tackle. He's going to be great. And it's not just with the things he does that are in the stat sheet. A lot of the stuff he does out there, either locking up with Tyler Warren or disguising different coverages, it's very hard for any quarterback. Drew Allen is a good quarterback. Didn't have a great day, but he's a good quarterback. Bo Pribula, it's a good quarterback. Didn't have a great day either. So Caleb, these are just the 2 quarterbacks today that struggled in a big way. And I think it's because Caleb Downs just shakes things up. With him being a last line of defense, he could even come down and stick his nose down there and get dirty in the run game. He did that today too. Caleb Downs, yeah, his numbers aren't the greatest. He wasn't the leading tackler. Nobody cares. It's not a problem because the linebackers are doing a great job, and he is doing a great job too. Cody Simon, by the numbers, led Ohio State in tackles once again this year. 10 tackles today. He had a sack and 1 TFL. He continues to play big boy football, a little possessed. He had 5 tackles at the end of the first quarter. I'm just blown away, man. I continue to be amazed with Cody Simon's play and how sound he is and how many big plays he makes. Lathan Ransom, 7 tackles, 1 pass breakup. And once again, I mean, you would think I thought he may have had 2 or 3 more. But Ohio State's guys, they're getting better at not missing tackles, not needing someone else to clean up the mess. They're just doing great jobs, man. I mean, Igben-Olsen, the interception. Think about this. Igben-Olsen's interception. That's one of those plays that could be a killer for Penn State. Penn State could look at that and say, man, we just can't do nothing. Man, we can't figure things out. Igben-Olsen, he could have said, oh, man, that's my kind of play, man. And he could have just got his head so big that it would have been so inflated that he would have started making mistakes on the field. Penn State didn't back down, and Iggy kept his composure. A guy who was the most penalized Buckeye this year, and I think even last year. Don't have the numbers from last year on me, but even last year, he was a heavily penalized guy. And what are we finding? He is back to making plays. Yeah, he's a little handsy. But before the game, we heard Joe Clark say the refs were saying they're going to let the guys be a little physical because in big-time games, that's going to happen. I'm going to compare it to basketball and get up and close up shop. In basketball, we hear it all the time. There's refereeing, how refs officiate games in the preseason. There's regular season officiating, and then there's postseason officiating. And even sometimes in the Super Bowl, they let that thing go a little bit different too. Because in the postseason, you can be more physical. The refs aren't going to call as much as they would during the regular season because it's do or die. It's survive in advance. And they understand the winner go home mentality is inside every single player, you're going to be a little bit more physical. It's natural. And a guy in Igbenogson has been very, very physical, knowing the refs might allow it, cool, but also knowing finish the play. And yeah, he got a little handsy. Refs allowed it. But on that play, he wasn't too handsy. He was right there and ripped that thing from the receiver. Igbenogson's another one of those guys. Could have gone through Denzel Burke. Could have gone through Caden McDonald and Hero Canoe on the final drive of the game where Tyleik Williams out in a heavier D-line set. What do? They made big boy plays, man. They got in there, gap sound, and they said, yeah, we know we're backups. We can play big boy ball at Ohio State too. Tua Maloa was great. I mean, I love watching him play anytime he's playing against Penn State. Caden Curry was one that caused a miscommunication between the quarterback, a little confusion because Caden Curry dropped back into coverage, which resulted in Drew Allen making a bad throw. It's just awareness, man. I mean, this team is so good. I could not go through a game like this and just go through, well, we got one player of the game on offense and one on defense because there was too many guys that I felt like needed to be highlighted during Ohio State's or after Ohio State's 20-13 win over Penn State. It was a fun game to watch, and this is a great little boost, morale boost. Now, next week and the week after, expect a couple blowouts for Ohio State. So I know at least that's I forget who the opponent is in a couple weeks. But Buckeyes win. They overpower Penn State. Penn State's a good football team, but Ohio State's better. Thank you all for tapping in to this Locked on Buckeyes postcast after Ohio State's win over Penn State. For your second listen of your college football Saturday, make sure you check out the Locked on Big Ten podcast. My guy, Craig Sheeman, is the guy that puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked on Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Buckeye fans, we're up out of here on a college football Saturday after Ohio State picks up another win in front of a hostile crowd, and this one is a Buckeye win over Penn State.